Wow! And it is all over! You ready? Let's go!
What's up, guys? Welcome back to All Day MMA Radio. Today is episode 3, and the main topic of discussion in this episode is going to be, in my opinion, 5 of the best, somewhat up-and-coming prospects in MMA. The first one that I'm going to talk about is probably a guy that most of you have heard of by now, so I'm a little late to the party on this one, but it is someone I've been watching for a while. He's extremely fun to watch. He has a incredible, funny personality. He's got a lot of power, and I think eventually he may have a legit chance to dethrone Jon Jones. The guy I'm talking about, Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker, if you don't know, he's Brazilian. He's 17-3 as a pro. Like I just said, in my opinion, he may be the one to eventually dethrone Jon Jones. So he's a light heavyweight, obviously. The guy's only 26 years old. He's had 3 fights in the UFC. All 3 fights have ended in devastating fashion. 2 of those fights within a minute, and the other fight ended within 2 minutes. The guy's highlight reel is insane. I actually did a highlight video on Johnny Walker, I think about a week ago. If you're not familiar with him, I definitely recommend checking that out. He's a fun guy to watch. He has a very aggressive style. He packs a ton of power, and he also has the size to match Jon Jones. I think he's like 6'6". I'm not exactly sure what his reach is, but I think it's not too far off from Jon Jones. So like I said, the dude's 26. He has a ton of room to grow. The only question mark for me when it comes to him eventually fighting Jon Jones is his ground game. Because more than likely, he will get taken down. And is he going to be able to get back up? Or is Jon Jones going to submit him or TKO him with elbows like he's done to many opponents in the past? That's the only question. We haven't seen any of Johnny Walker's ground game, at least not in the UFC up to this point. Because like I said, all 3 of his fights have been super early finishes, and they've all been either TKO or KO. So I'm hoping, I was thinking his last fight against Misha Serkinov is he's a legit grappler. He has a really good ground game, really good submissions. So I was kind of hoping that he would take down Johnny Walker so we could see what Johnny Walker looks like on the ground. But that didn't happen. Johnny Walker decided to end that fight a couple seconds into it with an incredible flying knee, and that was all she wrote. Unfortunately, he hurt his shoulder trying to do some type of worm celebration, so hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully he's back in the octagon sooner rather than later. Personally, I'd love to see him have like 2 more fights and then challenge Jon Jones if Jon Jones still has the title at that point, or if he hasn't moved up to heavyweight. Maybe against, I'm not sure what he's ranked at the moment after his last fight, but I'd definitely love to see him fight someone in the top 10 next, and then after that, the top 5. So that is definitely someone to keep your eye on, definitely someone to watch out for. If you're not familiar with him, like I said, check out the highlight reel. I'll link it down below. If you're listening on audio, go to our YouTube channel, All Day MMA, and you can find it there as well. All right, for the second guy, we're going to switch over to Bellator. He's also someone that, if you follow MMA, if you are I won't say necessarily die-hard fan, but if you catch the majority of the Bellator and UFC events, you've definitely heard of this guy. His name is Aaron Pico. He's only 22 years old. He has Olympic caliber wrestling, incredible boxing. He trains with Freddie Roach. He has great hands, a ton of power. He loves the body shots, and unfortunately, that was his undoing in his last fight. He hurt the guy, and then for whatever reason, he got super aggressive going for the finish, and he kept throwing the same body shot over and over, and I believe his opponent landed an overhand right that knocked him out. But like I said, he's only 22. He's 4-2 as a pro. He didn't have any amateur bouts, to my knowledge. So he's still extremely green, extremely young in the game. He has a ton of room to improve. He trains with somebody that you may have heard of named TJ Dillashaw. And I've heard in many interviews, many videos, TJ Dillashaw does not have enough good things to say about the guy. He says his work rate is insane, his cardio is insane, his skills are just out of this world. So that's definitely someone to keep an eye on. If you haven't seen him, go back and watch his fights. I think Bellator put, I believe, all of them on YouTube, or at least highlights of them. Like I said, he's 4-2 as a pro, and all 6 of those fights have been in Bellator. He definitely didn't start out in some regional promotion fighting cans. He jumped right into the fire. His first fight was at lightweight. He got caught and then submitted. And after that, he dropped down a weight class. And now he's at featherweight. And he's looked incredible in every single fight. And his last 2 fights have been against legit competition. And like I said, his most recent fight, although he got knocked out, he was absolutely, up until that point, winning that fight. You could even say dominating that fight, extremely close to finishing the guy. As I mentioned, he has incredible wrestling, Olympic caliber wrestling. I would like to see him incorporate more of that into his game instead of going for that liver shot over and over. He's ended a couple fights with the body shot in Bellator so far. So I think that's what he was trying to do again. But he just got a little bit over-aggressive, too reckless, and he got caught. He'll learn from it. Hopefully he incorporates a little more grappling into his game. Maybe next time he hurts an opponent, he'll take him down and finish him with some ground and pound, or just not be quite as over-aggressive. I'm sure his team's going to help him work on that, and I can't wait to see his next performance. Moving right along to prospect number 3, who is also in Bellator, and he's also in the featherweight division. Now, this is a guy that, unless you followed kickboxing or you followed Muay Thai, you may not be familiar with him. His name is Gaston Bolanos, and he has a professional record of 4-1. I believe he was 8-0 in kickboxing. He won numerous Muay Thai championships, and he is only 26 years old. So the dude's green in MMA for sure. His striking is incredible though. Just like I mentioned about Johnny Walker, I made a highlight video on Gaston Bolanos not too long ago. So if you're interested, I'll link that one down below as well. If you're listening to it on audio, once again, go check out our YouTube channel, All Day MMA, and you can find it there. As I mentioned, he has incredible striking. He mixes it up really well. He's finished a couple fights via spinning elbow, which is pretty crazy. He throws a lot and lands a lot. He's a fun guy to watch. His striking arsenal as a whole is very impressive. And up until this point, he's finished every single fight that he's won within 2 rounds. The one and only thing that concerns me with Gaston is the ground game. As I mentioned, he was an incredible kickboxer, an incredible Muay Thai fighter, and so far he's looked great in MMA competition. But I believe his lone loss was via submission. So his ground game is definitely a question mark. I'm sure he's been working on it once he started training MMA. It remains to be seen how much of a problem that will be, especially against the more talented grapplers in Bellator or the more talented wrestlers. But he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. As I mentioned, he's only 26. He's learning and getting better with each fight. And his striking is just, it's something else, man. It's fun to watch. All of his fights, you're on the edge of your seat the whole time because you never know what strike he's going to throw. And he can finish a fight at any moment. So definitely got to keep an eye on. With that said, we're jumping back to the UFC for number 4. And we're moving up to the lightweight division. This guy, I mentioned earlier, Aaron Pico, has amazing wrestling. This guy has amazing wrestling as well. Lots of people haven't heard of him, even though he's undefeated. He's 13-0 as a pro. He's finished almost all of his fights, yet he doesn't have that hype that some of these other fighters have. I don't know exactly why. I think a lot of it has to do with his personality. He's a really chill guy, laid back. He's not into the antics of calling people out or like the Conor McGregor stuff or the Colby Covington stuff. That's just not his style. He actually, from interviews I've seen, pretty much refuses to call out anyone at all. All he will give to the media is that he wants to fight the champ, whoever it is at that time. As I mentioned with Johnny Walker, I think he has the potential to beat John Jones, who's been a dominant champion, obviously, at light heavyweight, possibly the greatest of all time. I think Gregor Gillespie, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, I think he could possibly be the man to beat Khabib. The reason I say that is he has incredible chain wrestling, just like Khabib. He's super aggressive, especially going for the takedowns, just like Khabib. He actually has a very similar style. He's an NCAA Division I national champion in wrestling, and his cardio is insane. The dude just never, ever gets tired. That's why I think he could beat Khabib. I'm not sure who has the better striking. I haven't seen too much of Gregor's striking. He pretty much goes for the takedown right away, and he pretty much always gets it, and then he wins via submission or TKO on the ground. So I'm not sure whose striking's better. We haven't really seen too much of Khabib's either, except in the Al Iaquinta fight. Al is a good stand-up fighter, and Khabib's striking in that fight did not look too bad at all. So it definitely looks to be improving every fight. We saw a little bit of it in the Conor McGregor fight. Obviously, he landed that one big shot that dropped Conor. But I don't think he would have a huge striking advantage over Gregor. And it's tough to say until you actually see those two fight. But I want to say the wrestling might cancel each other out. I think the major advantage Gregor has is his cardio. As I mentioned, he has a relentless pace and he never gets tired. So that's definitely someone to watch out for. If you haven't heard about him, I believe he's getting, or at least I hope he's getting a top 10 opponent next. Because as I mentioned, he's 13-0, but he is the oldest of the prospects that I'm talking about. He's 31 years old, which isn't too old, but he has more of a limited time frame than some of these other guys. So I'd like to see him fight definitely next someone in the top 10, then the top 5 after that if he wins, and then hopefully challenge Khabib for the title if Khabib still has the title at that point in time. All right, so the last prospect I want to talk about, although there's many others that I can name, and I will throw out 2 honorable mentions at the end, but the last one I'm going to talk about and go into detail about, number 5, is Tatiana Suarez. Once again, I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. I believe I am. If you're not familiar with Tatiana, she is 7-0 as a pro. She's a strawweight in the UFC. And her wrestling, if I had to compare it to one other fighter in the UFC, it would be Khabib Nurmagomedov. Her wrestling's insane, especially in the women's division. She takes everyone down. She's relentless. She has great cardio. If she wants to take you down, you're going down. Her last fight against former champ Carla Esparza was pretty much, I think it ended in the 3rd round, and it was a pretty much 3-round domination. She kept taking Carla down repeatedly. Carla's no slouch in wrestling herself, but there's levels to wrestling, and Tatiana is by far the best wrestler that I have seen in women's MMA. So, she took Carla down repeatedly, was just beating her up on the ground, and eventually finished her in the 3rd round. If you haven't watched that fight, I definitely recommend checking it out to see just how dominant she can be. She's 28 as well, so she still has time to grow as a fighter. And her next fight, she actually has a scheduled fight against Nina Ansaroff, who just put on a clinic against an extremely good fighter in Claudia Gadelha? Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. Hope I'm not just butchering all these names. But Claudia's a beast. I thought she was going to win that fight for sure, and Nina Ansaroff just put it on her. So that was a very impressive performance. I can't wait to see her fight Tatiana. I have a feeling my prediction for that fight is Tatiana's going to take her down like she has everyone else, and she's going to beat her up and finish her on the ground. But it's an exciting fight. It will be an exciting fight, I'd imagine, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think the winner of that fight will probably, most definitely, challenge either Rose or Jessica Andrade, whoever wins that fight, for the title. So, Tatiana is definitely another prospect to keep your eye on. Like I said, by far, in my opinion, she has the best wrestling in all of women's MMA. And her pressure is crazy. Her cardio looks to be really good. she's a fun person to watch. So if I had to make a prediction, I would imagine she will be the UFC strawweight champion by the end of the year. That is my bold prediction. And if you've seen her fights, it's not too crazy of a prediction. Anyways, that is it for the main 5 prospects, the main 5 up-and-coming fighters that I want to talk about in MMA. The 2 honorable mentions I was going to throw out is Zabit. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the last name. He just fought Jeremy Stephens. His striking is really fun to watch. He doesn't pack that much power, but his striking arsenal is crazy. He throws a bunch of crazy kicks. I think he tried like a 360 roundhouse kick against Jeremy Stephens. He definitely comfortably won that fight, and his grappling is really good as well. But I don't know if his stock necessarily rose too much from that fight. He won a unanimous decision, but I don't think it was quite as impressive of a performance as some other fighters. Even though Jeremy Stephens is a great fighter himself, he's always dangerous. I'm definitely looking forward to Zabit's next fight, though. I definitely think he has the potential to be the champion one day. So that is another guy, if you haven't heard of, to keep an eye on. The last honorable mention I want to throw out is Kayla Harrison, who competes in the PFL. She's actually about to compete in the brand new lightweight division in the PFL. She's going to participate in the tournament that they're about to do. I believe the winner of that tournament gets $1 million, and her main... I don't think they've announced all the tournament fighters yet, but I know for sure that one of them is Sarah Kaufman, who's actually moving up 2 weight classes to give a shot at that tournament. So if you're not familiar with Kayla Harrison, she is an Olympic, I believe, gold medalist in judo. She's crazy strong. Obviously, she has amazing judo, amazing takedowns, great submissions, great ground game, incredible grappling. And so far, her cardios look top-notch. So, unfortunately, there's not really too many fighters in women's MMA that fight at 155 pounds. Cyborg definitely could, and I'd imagine if the UFC doesn't give her a fight soon, I think they'll let her go, and I would not be surprised at all if Cyborg heads over to PFL and eventually fights Kayla Harrison. That would definitely be an interesting matchup because although Kayla Harrison has incredible grappling, obviously, haven't really seen too much of her striking. She's only had 3 fights in MMA, so she's still brand new to the sport. She finished all those fights and she dominated all those fights. But it'd definitely be interesting to see her fight a crazy, talented stand-up fighter like Cyborg. So hopefully that fight happens sometime down the road. But like I said, it's unfortunate that there just isn't too many females out there that are fighting at the 155 weight class that I can think of off the top of my head, or any notable ones. So maybe she's a big girl, and she's I'm not saying that, and like I don't think she carries too much body fat. She's just a big girl, so she may be able to cut down to 145. Who knows? But either way, she's definitely an interesting prospect. She's fun to watch. Her fights are entertaining, and she's definitely another person to keep your eye on if you're a fan of MMA. And there we go, guys. That's pretty much all I wanted to cover for this episode. Those are all the prospects I could think of off the top of my head. Obviously, there's plenty more out there, but those are all the fighters I'm going to cover in this particular episode. If you are watching and you can think of any prospects, any up-and-coming guys that I didn't mention and I should know about, please drop a comment below. Or if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening to, like I've said a couple times, head over to our YouTube channel and drop me a comment on this video, because I'm always open. I don't know every prospect out there, obviously. I'm a die-hard MMA fan. I try and see as many events as I can. I try and keep an eye on all the up-and-coming talent, but there's definitely the possibility that I'm missing someone that has incredible talent and I should know about. So if you know something that I don't know, please let me know. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you got any questions or comments, drop those below as well, and I will catch you in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the upcoming UFC London card this weekend, and I'll see you next time.
My goodness! Oh my God! Just like that! That is some serious power! Wow!